You're listening to another episode of the Coaster101 podcast. I am Eric Lee, one of Coaster101's writers. I'm here with Shane Joseph, another Coaster101 writer. Hi, Shane.
Hey, Eric, how are you?
Good. You'll notice that Andrew is not here, but that is the reason that Shane and I wanted to do a podcast anyway, is that we both just finished a week at the IAAPA North America Expo. So we wanted to take a chance to talk about all the things that were announced at IAAPA and things we saw that were neat and get into a little bit of that this week. So I think maybe, Shane, we should start with the biggest announcements. So there were a few roller coaster announcements, train reveals. Maybe we can start with, see if you agree. Was this the most exciting announcement? A Vekoma launch coaster that none of us knew anything about, opening in Mexico theoretically next year?
Yeah, definitely. I think that was the most exciting announcement because what you just said, they basically announced a brand new theme park that I at least did not know about. But even if it was announced, I think it was pretty under the radar.
Yeah.
Nothing was really official. And then we walked in and there was a big picture of on the Vekoma booth of this new coaster. So it was kind of just silently announced, and then they revealed the trains, which are probably the coolest trains on the show floor this year.
So this is a ride called Tequani Beast. So the park that is coming to is a new theme park. I think there had been some announcements about other rides going to it. It is, I believe the park is called Bon, B-O-N, Luxury Theme Park. It is being opened by the Vedanta Group, which owns a couple of luxury resorts in Mexico. This one specifically, the theme park is opening next to their resort that is in Puerto Vallarta. And it's supposed to open next year. I think there's something like, at least according to RCDB, maybe 5 roller coasters coming to it. And I think
Yes.
this was the only one that I think there was nothing known about it before this. But also seems like it is going to be their biggest new attraction. So double launch, 6 inversions, 65 miles per hour. Something that they are calling a double rollover top hat, which I don't know exactly what that means.
Yeah,
but,
it's hard to tell from the POV.
There should be POV videos, and I think some other videos shared by Vekoma online, easy to find. But let's talk about, so they revealed the train, and I think based on the feedback on our social media posts, this is by far the most exciting train reveal that there was. Shane, can you tell us a little bit about what this train looked like and why it looks so good?
Okay, so for Eric, can you see? I have no wave pattern when I'm talking. Are we sure this is
I see your wave pattern.
You do? Okay, good, perfect.
Yeah.
Then I'll just start from the trains.
Yeah, just start from where I asked you the question. So
Okay.
Yes, I do see your wave.
Just want to make sure before we get too far into this.
Yeah, and it sounds like it's using the right mic because you sound okay.
Okay, good. So the reason that first and foremost that I think these trains stand out is because of the LEDs. This is something that we've been seeing like the past few IAPAs. A lot of the trains have LED elements in them to really make them stand out, and that's goes for a lot of different things. Epic Universe here in Orlando, their new mock launch coaster Stardust Racers has LED elements inside the trains as well. We saw it with Falcon's Flight at Six Flags Qiddiya. A couple of their other coasters there have it too. So I think this is a very cool way to make the trains stand out during the day and at night, because they are really bright, so you can definitely see them during the day too. But just the colors, the train is very colorful. There is cool sculpting elements of like this sort of Mexican design pattern of the actual beast itself. And I think that this really makes it stand out on the show floor. It's a very colorful booth that is definitely eye-catching when you're walking by.
Yeah, I think there were lots of comments to our posts about this is this is what the people wish that something like an Iron Quasi coaster
Yeah.
front looked like, and that kind of comparing it to combining of other coaster designs and imagery. I think we should to Kwani. I believe I don't know if he was the CEO of Vedanta World. When he was talking, said Tequani Aztec word stands for wild. I think something like that means
Hmm.
something like that. So wild beast, but definitely seems like it's very sort of Aztec themed coaster. I think maybe the whole park is like that. Yeah, looks very cool. The other sort of new coaster announcement, I don't know if this one had been hinted at before or not, is also a launch coaster, but sort of on the other end of intensity. So this is Zamperla announced a family launch coaster coming to Parc Spirou, which is in southern France, in Provence. Family launch coaster. The most exciting thing I would guess to most people about this is that it is themed to the anime Naruto, which I don't know anything about, although I think you might, Shane.
Not really. I don't know too much about it, um, but I do know that it is massively popular. So that
Yes.
will get a lot of people to this park and get this park on people's radars for sure.
Yeah.
Um, but really, so the Zamperla, this family launch coaster, was first revealed at IAAPA, I think 2 years ago or 3 years
Yeah.
ago. And I believe this is the first actual installation of it. And it's really interesting, this layout. Um, it is, I mean, technically it has a couple launches because it will
Yeah.
go through the station again. But the second time it goes through, there'll be a switch track, so it will take a different layout, and there's a backwards section with a spike, which we've been seeing like blow up in recent years. Almost,
Yeah.
I feel like every other coaster has a spike with a backwards section now, but I think this will really set it apart as a family coaster, where it is something that is eye catching and will be interesting to people, but anyone can ride it, especially with the theme. When
Yeah.
you have a theme that is this popular, a lot of people are going to want to go and ride this attraction. So I think this is a good middle ground of it's not thrilling really, but it will still be fun for anyone to ride.
Yeah. I think when they announced it, when they, on the press conference, they said that it's maybe the first dead end spike in Europe. Um, they also, so the second launch is the faster one, the one that goes up the spike, so it hits 47 miles per hour. I think the other thing is that this is the first Naruto themed roller coaster. I didn't look into this, but I think it might be a whole sort of Naruto themed area of the park.
Yeah, definitely.
Um,
It is going to be part of a land.
yeah, and basically the first IP. They talk in the press conference. They talked a lot about the theming on it, and adding to that, the model they had did not have any theming. I think the POV has some, although it has the caveat on it that all of the imagery is not actual and not final and things
Right,
like that.
right.
But yeah, I nice to see Zamperla make one of these family launch coasters and something with a new theme. I think there's an uptick in anime themed attractions. It seems like coming
Yes,
to all of the
definitely.
world, which is it's interesting because I went to Universal Studios Japan for the first time last year, and I remember thinking like, oh, there's a lot of anime here, which is not something that you see
Hmm.
at parks in the U.S. very much, but obviously is hugely popular in Japan, but also hugely popular here. And I had the thought of why hasn't Universal added more anime to the U.S. parks if they have the licensees for these? Um, and it sounds like now they are, and now other parks are trying to jump on more of those licenses that are still
Definitely,
available.
yeah.
Um, a couple other attraction reveals, train reveals we had. So, Alpenfury, the new coaster coming to Canada's Wonderland from Premiere, they revealed the train car for that. It does look a little bit different from past Skyrocket trains. Uh, saw some. I apologize for not crediting correctly, but someone replied to our social media highlighting a few of the differences. Should make it easier to get in and out of those trains. Uh,
Yes.
B&M did not have a press conference, but they had the Raptera, one of, I guess, a Raptera train car, or maybe just either a spare or a prototype or a mock-up on the show floor, because obviously I think we shared videos that those trains are already testing at Busch
Yes, they
Gardens.
are.
So they weren't testing the one that was at IAAPA, but they did have
No.
one there. Looks like a wing coaster. It's very big and pretty. And then SNS revealed one of the gondola cars for the new attraction coming to Hershey Park.
Yeah, those the gondolas are huge. If you've ever ridden a scream and swing, you know kind of what the seats look like. But they said I think it was the largest ride vehicle to be revealed ever on the IAAPA show floor, which is pretty cool. And yeah, it's massive and it's very red because it's Twizzlers themed.
Yep.
They also handed out Twizzlers, which was very nice during the announcement. But I think this is great. It'll be a great addition to Hershey Park. I think it's hard at this point to find something that Hershey Park does not have
Yeah.
because there's so much there. They pretty much it's like the perfect lineup there at the park. So this was something that I would never have predicted, but now that it's revealed, it makes perfect sense because they don't really have another attraction like this. So I think this will just further complement their already incredible lineup that they have.
Yeah. I think those were the only sort of big coaster or reveals from large coaster manufacturers. Is there anything else we missed?
Yes.
Anything else you want to highlight on any of those reveals on the roller coaster side?
Nothing else really. I don't know if we have an opening time period for the Tequani Beast coaster. But I think Naruto is definitely 2026. So that'll
Yes.
be another year before that opens. Um,
I think
but I'm not
Tequani
sure.
I think Tequani Beast is supposed to be 2025. I think the whole theme
Okay.
park is supposed to open next year with uh, all of the new roller coasters they're building.
Okay.
We'll see. There's
Um,
no more specific date than 2025, so we'll see
right.
when that actually happens. And of course, if that
The
actually
only other
happens
thing
on
that I
time.
can think of that would be worth mentioning is at the Intamin booth, they had an interactive display for their multi-dimension coaster, which I've always been a huge fan of, and I think it's just the perfect storytelling roller coaster, and every park should get one. But in the interactive display, it did say that there were 5 unannounced multi-dimension coasters coming soon.
Yeah, Intamin
So
did not have a press conference, and they didn't have any vehicles at their booth. Unfortunately, they're things
right,
that I think we wish we could have seen at the Intamin booth.
yes,
But yeah, it seems like they are working on a lot of things. I guess we can also add that the Zamperla booth also mentioned a couple of other attractions. They had their double heart coaster, which I think they showed the model of in the past. They told us that they have sold 2 of those. One of them is going to Asia. The other one, they couldn't give any more details than it's going to Asia. The other one, they couldn't give even that level of detail on. But both, I think, scheduled for 2026 opening. So maybe next IAAPA, we'll hear more about those. Maybe moving on to some non-coaster announcements that were made.
yes,
I think so. One of the big press conferences we saw was Triotex, and so they announced. Maybe talk a little bit about all of the things going on in Saudi Arabia more generally after this. But Triotech
yes,
announced a partnership with a group in Saudi Arabia called Seven that is building, I think it was 8 discovery centers, which I think are don't know exactly what they are. Small, maybe indoor kind of theme parks partnering with
yeah.
Warner
It sounds like it. They
Discovery.
didn't go too in depth, but last year, Seven was with the SNS booth for the Transformers themed Axis coaster. So I'm not
Yeah.
sure if where that is going to be one of these Discovery Centers.
Or if it's
Um,
a different park that Seven is working on
yeah, I'm
with
not
them.
sure
Yeah.
exactly.
So Triotech is partnering with Seven on 8 attractions. They are sort of described them as indoor, not a dark ride in the sense that the vehicle doesn't actually move, but indoor attraction where instead of just like a screen in front of you or VR, basically having sort of a 360-degree screen around you to sort of give the feeling of motion through a space. I think they said it was about 1,000 square feet is about the space that you need for these vehicles. Um,
Yeah,
they'll-
so it's a smaller footprint, but it seems like it'll be a pretty immersive attraction
yeah,
for that little time because you board the vehicle. It's essentially one long row of back to back seats.
yeah,
So each side of the car will be looking out a different side. Um, and the screens are outside of the vehicle, so it won't be like you're just staring at a screen. It'll
yeah,
be sort of give some depth, and then there'll be just massive screens. And they were saying they designed like the windows to specifically uh, make it more realistic, where you don't see the top or bottom of the screen.
yeah.
And then there'll be effects going on within the ride vehicle as well. So it seems like a really interesting concept.
Yeah, it made the first thing that I have no idea if this is actually what it'll look like, but the first thing I pictured when they described it was something like Kong with the 360-degree
Yes, yeah, it sounds very
screen
similar.
around you where you can't really see the top and it sort of feels like you're in the action. They said it will be IP related, although they did not reveal the IP, but as you just mentioned, we know Seven has a Transformers IP
Yes, so it
already. So,
could be that.
and some of the vehicles they showed maybe looked a little bit Transformer looked like
Yeah,
the concept art for the vehicles. And I think these are already being installed. We talked to Trontech, so they are all of the development and R&D is done on them. They are being installed or at least some of them are being installed in Saudi Arabia now. I think they're not. I think these discovery centers are not scheduled to open all at the same time. So there's a pattern. I think there's also some. It's supposed to be 7 or 8 now, but that number could go up or down depending on
right.
on construction timelines. Um, Other interesting announcement was Falcon's Creative Group had a big one. Shane, would you like to explain what's going on there?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Falcons announcement is pretty big. They were kind of vague about what it was going to be beforehand. I think it just said Falcons will announce a new company growth or something like that. And so we went over their booth. It was set up like a late night show, which was very fun. So they had Audrey, who's the host of their podcast, Experience Imagination. She came out and hosted this late night show where she talked to several people that they had put on their new advisory board, such as the previous president of Universal Creative, as well as somebody from Oceaneering, which led them into this announcement, which would be that Falcons Beyond, which is the parent company for Falcons Creative Group, is entering into this partnership with Oceaneering Entertainment Systems, which is the ride section of the Oceaneering company. And essentially, Falcons will be uh, outputting all of the future Oceaneering attractions. So anything that Oceaneering is working on, current and future, will now be a part of Falcons in terms of the ride aspect of it.
Yeah, and I think for anyone who doesn't know Oceaneering, so they manufacture ride vehicles. I think mostly for dark rides. I think they do the Transformers ride vehicle and Spider-Man ride vehicles at
Yes.
Universal. I think they did Simpsons ride vehicle and a bunch of those. So they have worked with Falcons a lot before. I think on attractions. Um, so it seems like an exciting, certainly for Falcons, exciting to um, get closer together and acquire Oceaneering and work more with them and see if it also maybe allows them to do more in terms of either maybe future ride vehicle design that can be targeted specifically at concepts that Falcons is working on. But
Right.
big
Yeah.
big
Very exciting.
big industry news for sure. Did not
Yes.
announce any new. Well, they did. Falcons did talk about some projects they were working on, but very quickly in sort of like press reels. I know they've got a project going on at a new, I think, aquarium being built in Hong Kong and a few others. Did not
Yes.
did not share any new Oceaneering ride vehicle designs with us though.
No, not yet. Hopefully soon, though.
Not yet. Other interesting things that we can get at that we just saw. So those I think were the biggest announcements and press conferences that I think we saw at IAAPA. other interesting things we saw just walking around the show floor. Um, there were not a ton of the roller coaster manufacturers had ride vehicles. We mentioned, all right, Intamin, no ride vehicle there, but they had, and Shane mentioned some cool concepts. Gerstlauer had a model of their inverted infinity coaster, which they have actually built
Yes.
one of that I did not realize existed. It's in
Yeah,
Norway.
me neither.
I think they are building a second one in South America. I want to say like Colombia or something like that. So far, those are the only we've seen. Neat model. Had not heard of the
Very
inverted
cool. Yeah.
infinity coaster before. So that it's now on the list of things. I'm like, oh, can one of these come? Can one of these come to the U.S.?
Yes, please.
I think we also saw the Maurer booth had Maurer continues to develop new concepts for their spike powered coaster. I think this year they're opening. They've got another one coming to a cruise ship. I think one of the Disney cruise ships, right?
Yes, one of the new Disney ships is going to have an Iron Man one.
Yeah, and so they had models of a couple different things that I don't think we'd seen before. One, a sort of spike tower. I don't know the best way to describe it.
Yeah, it kind of looks like that tower that is seemingly always rumored to be coming to Orlando, that
Right.
giant sky coaster concept, but it looks similar to that, but it looks a little more feasible.
Yeah. And then they also had one, I think the first spike model we've seen with a loop that sort of, I think they call it the figure eight or super eight model, basically had sort of a vertical figure eight
Yes.
looping powered coaster. I think maybe the most interesting thing on both these models, and we talked to Maurer a little bit about this, is that the earliest spike models had kind of the single 2-person vehicles that you can control yourself. Very cool, but low capacity.
Yes, definitely.
Both of these new models had multi-seat, multi-vehicle trains on them, which Maurer mentioned as them acknowledging that to go to like a big theme park or something, you would need to up the capacity.
Right.
So maybe that's something. One of these models also, they look pretty fun. Like, oh, maybe that
Definitely.
solves
I
one
hope
of
we get
the
one in the US.
solves one of the downsides of them. Hope we get them. I still haven't been on a spike. I guess I need to take a cruise or go to one of the couple of them that are in Europe.
Yes.
But they do look really cool. Any other coaster things that you saw that?
I'm not sure. Oh, GCI had their dueling inverting wood coaster model again, which is always cool to see. They had a couple of trains there, and then they had a little display for, I think it was like a competition, train design competition that was fun.
Yeah.
Um, and then there's also Skyline, who had the Pescetti trains out again. It seems like this year they were really focused on their Trail Runner coaster. Talked to a couple different people who all said the same thing, which was this is their version of an Aero Mine train. So they're hoping that this will catch on as a very low to the ground, like terrain based coaster.
Yeah.
They had a model, a little 3D printed version of that train. So hopefully that will be a reality soon. And then RMC had a different sort of train seat there. I think you took a closer look at that, Eric.
Yeah, I think we hopefully we put a couple pictures up. By the time this is out, there will hopefully be some pictures up of it. So RMC had, in was it last year or before that they announced their Wild Moose sort of family
Yes.
coaster design. Haven't built any, but they had in their booth the prototype train car or seat, I guess, for the Wild Moose. It was interesting. So it had the actual prototype mechanics for the restraint system and all of that. Although they're still working on tweaking the exact type of rubber and hardness of rubber that they want to use on the seat. So they had 3D printed seat attached to the rest of the mechanics. Talking to them about it, I think they've maybe learned some lessons from their iBox trains of making it much easier to pull down and push up the restraints. Also,
Mm-hmm.
they talked a lot about how so in this case the mechanism for the restraint system is entirely on the front and entirely removable. So they talked to me about how they can, if there's some problem with the restraint system, they can just like take it off and put a new one on there and then fix the one that had the problem separately without needing to sort of take the whole train apart and get under the cars and stuff. So hopefully it also makes maintenance easier for parks. Haven't seen one of them built yet, but they said there's been lots of interest. Hopefully, they look really fun. I would love to see one
Definitely,
day.
I want to see one soon. I'm
Yeah,
surprised, honestly, that no one has bought one of these yet.
it's maybe. I mean, I think a good sign that it sounds like they are building the prototype vehicles, and so they're expecting. Wouldn't be doing that if they weren't expecting to sell one. I asked them if they were building a prototype track at their facility in Idaho, the way they did with sort of the Raptor designs and some of the other ones.
Mm-hmm.
And they said not really, because most of it is close enough to kind of the gauge and the rails are not the same as the iBox, but close enough that
Right.
they're not really inventing something new on that side. It's a new design, but not something that they feel like they need to build and test. So hopefully the fact that they're making trains is a sign that somebody will get one soon. Maybe in a year or two.
Yes, hopefully.
We can see one announced. Um, any other roller coasters? We Gravity Group at their booth they had a fun mock-up of a train car, not one that exists, but a concept one they did. A dragon on it. They also had, you get very up close on their engineered wood track, which was a cool design that I think we have an article about, or at least have posted about in the past. Nothing else at their booth that we saw, I don't think. I think maybe we move on to a couple other interesting non-coaster things.
Yes.
Was there any non-coaster stuff that really stood out to you, Shane, as being particularly cool?
I think the trackless ride vehicle from ETF was on display, where they actually
Yeah.
had it moving around. And then they had a little model of the vehicle for the Enchanted Greenhouse dark ride going to Six Flags Qiddiya again in Saudi Arabia. Um, so I'm not sure if it's the same type of model that they were displaying. I think it is.
Yeah, I'm not sure. So the vehicle that they had, the full size one moving around, they call their dynamic mover. I'm not sure if that's the same one that they're using on that ride, but it was really cool. It's I think what makes it special is the base, obviously trackless and can move around, but then the vehicle sits on top of it and also has a full 360-degree rotation separate from the base. And it seems that they have worked out the controls such that you could have the base be moving and moving pretty quickly. It was able to move both slowly but also make pretty fast movements, and keep the seat that the rider is in looking in the same direction, so that you can sort of
Right.
you can do things like sliding the vehicle without turning the riders or jostling the riders too much. And speaking to some creative people there, that seemed like that is it was could open up some very big opportunities for using using these vehicles for things.
Definitely.
And certainly from an engineering point of view, that is hard to do. And so it was pretty cool looking vehicle moving around. I don't remember if we will post a reel on Instagram or have it up on our YouTube if we have not yet. Um, any other highlights? I know you played with some of the VR stuff over in the game section of IAAPA. Anything really cool over there?
Yeah, we tried out. There was a VR arena that was very cool, where it's designed for lots of different players, where you had the headset and then the gloves, like VR controllers, so you could actually like pick things up and like interact with things, which I thought was really cool, super immersive, the way it was done. We also tried the VR, like flipping inverting simulator over at DOF Robotics, which I'd done before, but always really fun to do again. Um, really unique and like so like eye catching, and will get people talking. Like you see people flipping around and rotating on this crazy robot arm with VR headsets. So that was fun. And then
Yeah.
we tried out, yeah, a couple of the smaller like arcade games with the VR.
Yeah.
So
I
yeah, I
think,
think VR has kind of found its place now in like these family entertainment centers and in arcades. And I think it's really smaller is better with VR. If you try to do something like too big and too crazy, like even with the ones that I tried, even though the DOF robotics one was the most involved and the most intense, uh, that's harder to sell the immersion because you would not really find yourself in a situation like that. But something like the VR arena, where you are walking around and interacting with things, I think is a better fit for that because you just buy into it more.
yeah.
So I like that that's sort of where VR has settled and found a place.
I think I know that DOF said they have some of those VR robot roller. I forget what they actually Hurricane Coaster or something like that. That they've installed a bunch in the US, although I haven't seen one. So if you've ridden one, send us a message on social media somewhere and let us know what you think of it. Um, I think there was one of the other announcements we didn't mention earlier is that Brogent Technologies, which is a Taiwanese company that does flying theaters, they announced their new flying theater coming to Niagara Falls. But they had, I want to say it was something like a dozen different models of different types of flying theater attractions that they make. Um, they had one that I think is one of the most impressive things I've ever seen. It was a 1/70th scale model of an attraction that they're either is being built in China right now or is actually already open in China. That is basically a giant sailing ship with a full screen around it, so that you can.
Very cool.
Their little model had basically like a kraken attacking the ship, but it looks like something from set of a Pirates of the Caribbean movie where like, oh, this is how you would do this on a movie set, but it looked absolutely enormous. They had some videos of
Yeah.
it being constructed as well. That was really cool. They also had a model of a concept that they haven't built yet of a dark ride that they were looking at making in the future, and so see if a new company, flying theaters mostly, but if they also move into dark rides. Um, and then we didn't mention Mach. So the Mach booth, no roller coaster things other than some posters talking about how Voltron is great and won awards.
Yes.
I
Yep.
was would have loved to see some striker coaster models or something like there. I
Yeah.
know they're building another striker coaster, I think set to open next year, also in Europe. But they announced flying theater with SeaWorld, and they had a cool model of that I know you looked at as well, right?
Yes. Very cool. I'm not sure if the model they had out is the model that's going to SeaWorld.
Yeah.
I don't think they could say yet. Um, but if it is, that would be very cool because it's this double sided row of seats that's in front of the screen. And so essentially, what it is while one side is experiencing the ride, the other side is being loaded. And then the whole row of seats will rotate around for loading and unloading. So I think that the model is literally called like high capacity flying theater. So this is designed to have a very large throughput of riders. So this would be good for something like SeaWorld where you have a lot of visitors
Yeah.
and you need to quickly load and unload as efficiently as possible because sometimes those flying theaters can take a while. So
Yeah.
this is a great way to have the ride actually be going and have the film be running, and then by the time it's over, the next group of riders is already seated and ready to go, which is huge. So very much looking forward to see where this flying theater ends up.
Yeah. Um, any other Anything else that you saw on the show floor that you want to highlight or talk about?
I mean, there was definitely a lot. We'll put some. We'll have an article going up
Yeah.
within the next few days too, or probably will already be up by the time this podcast goes up. So definitely check that out. Eric, this was your first year at IAAPA.
Yeah.
So do you have any thoughts or just a general? What'd you think for your first year?
Yeah, I mean, it was fun. It's certainly, from our point of view, where we're on the first day, especially running between different press conferences, it was like sort of exhausting. I think what maybe surprised me the most, and we talked to a bunch of people from, I guess there's obviously the big roller coaster companies are there, and we know of them, but how much of the show is dedicated to things that are either not roller coaster related or much smaller companies that do things. We talked a little bit with Creative Visions, who's the company that do theming on rides all over the place. But they had a small booth, but some cool effects,
Hmm.
animatronics. They have there were so many animatronic dinosaurs from
So
companies
many.
all over the world that all look really good. Then I'm like, all right, if I need an animatronic dinosaur, there's a lot there's a lot of options
Yeah,
here.
there's options.
Yeah, I think just like seeing how many sort of smaller behind the scenes companies there are and getting a chance to talk to some of them. We talked to a company that makes well, sort of a magnet company, and then their partner who makes LSM systems and magnetic brakes,
Oh yeah,
things
they
like
had a
that.
very cool model there of a like a half pipe with an L.
Yep.
They had an actual LSM running this mini train, so that was very cool.
Yeah. So I think that's that was maybe the most interesting part was how many different smaller companies that you wouldn't have heard of, but have an important role in making animatronics or LED projection systems or braking systems and things like that. It's very neat. Would have loved, as always, would love more roller coaster vehicles, more
Yeah,
surprise ride announcements. Like we said, I think wish it'd be really fun if Intamin had it had a ride vehicle, or if Mach had a big announcement about a new Striker coaster coming to America. But
yeah.
um, yeah, it was really fun. This was your third, fourth,
Fourth
yeah,
year, fourth
fourth year.
year. Um,
How do you feel like it? Do you feel like it different from past years, or is it usually about the same?
it's about the same. Kind of like you said, there were less announcements this year.
Yeah,
Most of the train reveals were for things we already knew about, which is fine. And I wasn't expecting anything huge. I think 2025 is going to be a pretty big year. Obviously, we have Epic Universe opening, but it seems like we're seeing a lot of changes, like starting now, that will affect future years, like the Six Flags Cedar Fair
yep,
merger, all of these Saudi Arabia parks. A lot of things at this expo were for 2026.
yep.
So I think 2026 and beyond will be very exciting. So now this year is kind of gearing up for it. Um, Next year we have Epic Universe, so I was hoping maybe there would be a couple Epic Universe trains. There wasn't, then that's okay. So at least we'll have Epic Universe to hold us over. But yeah, I think 2026
Yeah.
is going to be a pretty huge year.
I think we know that some of the coaster manufacturers would love to reveal trains at IAAPA, but sometimes parks want to do the reveal at a separate park
Yes,
event in
which is
future. And
fine. Which is
I'm
fine.
guessing that might be the case with Epic
I
Universe
think so too.
this year. Yeah, I mean, I think we didn't talk about this, but I think my main takeaway, we mentioned it, was from talking to all these different ride makers, from dark rides to roller coaster manufacturers, is that pretty much everyone is building things in Saudi Arabia right now.
Yes,
And
everybody.
that's where the current boom in new attractions is. And we'll see how cyclical that is, how much of it, obviously, I mean, we've seen lots of it is actually under construction and or
Yes.
being tested. How much that boom in construction continues, or it will taper off after a lot of these get made. But that, I guess, in the next couple of years, if you want to go ride the newest roller coasters, that maybe a trip to Saudi Arabia is what you need to do.
Yeah, I think we'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
See how popular that becomes.
All right. Anything else you want to add about IAAPA this year, Shane?
No, just keep an eye out for our article that's coming out soon. You'll also see Eric and I on the Experience Imagination podcast from Falcon's creative group. So
we don't know
definitely
when.
check out. We're not sure when, but probably around the same time as this one, within the next week. They do an IAAPA episode where they interview people from the show floor. So me and Eric were on there.
Yeah.
And then they also will have a article coming out soon that we are featured in as well. So lots to look forward to. We'll share everything on social media, but as always, make sure you're following Coaster101 on all of the social media, as well as Blue Sky now. So you can find us there. We're going to have lots of things going up on our Instagram, our website, our YouTube. And we also have an Instagram highlight on our page if you want to go day by day from the show floor and kind of get up close and personal with the things we saw. That's a great place to see everything all in one spot.
Yep. Thank you, as always, to Justin Mabry of JMMD Entertainment for our theme music. And I think with that, that's all from us. But yeah, like Shane said, check out our Instagram especially. We'll have articles going up on the website, maybe already up. So check those out. We will talk to you next time. Bye.